tremendous expenditures involved in capital litigation. But first and foremost, it's simply immoral to kill people. We don't teach our children that it's wrong to kill, because if you do, your government will hunt you down and kill you. We teach our kids that it's wrong to kill simply because it's wrong to kill. And then to engage in that very conduct as adults is, I think, confusing for most people, and it's definitely contradictory. Sorry to give such a long answer, but it's a complicated question on whether or not there is a functioning justice system in America today, and I think the death penalty is an indication that there's a problem that needs to be dealt with and confronted in rational terms with reasonable people to solve these issues of recidivism and homicide, well, all crime. We've taken an approach of retributive justice in America, where we don't look at the offenders before they offend, those patterns of conduct that are exhibited by young men that indicate that they are going to end up in trouble. Instead of intervening at that point, we wait until they have committed an offense against the law, against the community, before we intervene in their lives. And when we do it in a violent way, and in a way that strips those young men of their dignity. There's nothing constructive about it. Those resources that are spent on the death penalty and other practices of the system right now are much better spent on prevention programs and seeing to it that law enforcement are properly funded, that they have the support they need. That's a terrible job that they have. You know, especially homicide detectives having to go to a scene and see that day after day after day, this the death and the destruction and all the ruined lives. It's hard on those men, and they need not adoration or our condemnation, but our support from the community. I witnessed it from the inside for 22 years, the difficulty of their job and the difficulty of the men and women who have to work in the prisons.
Well, I so appreciate you being here. I know you're here in Alaska to help us and hopefully get through to some people why this isn't going to be appropriate for us. And I am so grateful to the Innocence Project for, you're not the only one that they've gone in, done testing, and set free. And I'm so sorry that you spent so much of your life, you know, in a cage, undeserved. And it seems to me that your message from that hopefully will prevent anyone else. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Thank you so much. I love the sincerity of applause with a sign that says clap now. No, I do. I love it. And you can be part of the crew down here. We film on Thursday nights at Bernie's Bungalow. And if you want a reservation, and we'll try to save you a place, just send us an email at moreupnorth@gmail.com. And then, you know, we'll save you a spot and you might like it. So we're having a panel now that I am so happy is here. And I feel a little, well, squinchy because there are people on this panel that I really, really have admired their work for so long. And I won't tell you which one. So you can all just feel super special. All right, Bill Pelkey is here. He's the author of Journey of Hope, From Violence to Healing, which details the May 14th, 1985 murder of his grandmother by 4 teenage girls. Paula Cooper, the 15-year-old ringleader, was sentenced to die in the electric chair by the state of Indiana, and Pelkey supported the death sentence and then flipped after a really interesting transformation he went through, and has become an advocate against the death penalty, even though, you know, this horrible thing happened to him. And he's lived in Alaska for a while, so we're all local here. Rich Kurtner is the head of the Federal Defender Agency in Alaska and a past president of the National Coalition to Repeal the Death Penalty. And you're also a current member of that board, yes, I understand. And also a board member of the AKCLU and the AADP, Alaskans Against the Death Penalty. And he teaches criminal law class at UAA. Mm-hmm. So you must be qualified if you're teaching, right? Isn't that the rule?
I guess so.
And Susan Orlansky, I'm so glad you're here. She's a partner at Feldman, Orlansky, and Sanders, and she is representing a Texas criminal defendant under a death sentence pro bono. Even though you live and practice in Alaska, you are representing someone in Texas. She recently gave oral arguments before the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in that case, and since Alaska doesn't have a death penalty, Susan is one of the only lawyers in the state now representing a death sentence inmate. And, you know, full disclosure, I hope it stays that way. I really do. I want to ask you guys a little bit what's been happening here. Alaska, of course, got rid of the death penalty before we were even a state. We had Vic Fisher here a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about he was part of the group of men who got together to repeal that. And just what that was and the struggle that was, and talked about the racism that was so heavily injected into that here in Alaska when we did have the death penalty. But recently we've had the Joshua Wade case. He was a neighbor of mine. The woman that he admitted to killing was a neighbor of mine. Of course, there was Della Brown, who he admitted to killing as well some years ago, and went to jail for tampering with evidence. There are some really horrible examples of things, and certainly what happened to your grandmother, Bill. These horrible cases. How do you have a conversation with someone who is on Bible 1.0, still the eye for the eye thing, not recognizing that, of course, Christ was put to death by the state at the insistence of the church and the ironies that are there? But how do you have the conversation with someone and say that the death penalty is wrong? And Bill, maybe you can start that, since you actually at one point really wanted to see the 15-year-old girl who was the ringleader that killed your grandmother. You wanted to see her die.
Well, in answer to the first part of your question is I took Bible 201, so I'm very happy to talk with people who took Bible 101. I did graduate from a Bible college, and I am a Christian, and my story is a story of forgiveness and of love and compassion. And so I use that to deliver my message. And I believe the answer is love and compassion for all of humanity. And if you have love and compassion for all humanity, you're not going to see anybody put into a death chamber and their life taken from them. And so that's my message. And the death penalty movement has given me an opportunity to share that message, and I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you. You know, my pop has this thing about, you know, I always give my father's equations, Pop Moore. I could write books on things that he said. And he has these two definitions of mercy and grace. And grace is when you get something really good you don't deserve. And mercy is when you don't get something bad that you probably do deserve. And I hear these words a lot. And is it mercy that we're giving people if you don't, you know, if you allow them to continue?
Well, I mean, you don't allow them to continue, but I believe, you know, everybody wants justice, but people have a lot of different definitions as to what justice is. To me, if there's no mercy involved, then it's not true justice. I do believe in mercy. And when it comes to the death penalty, there's absolutely no room for mercy. And so I don't believe that's true justice.
Susan, how do you talk to people about this? Because obviously you're getting on an airplane and defying gravity to go defend a man in Texas who I understand has there's an IQ question there.
Our client committed a series of really ugly crimes, but the United States Supreme Court ruled in 2002 that it's cruel and unusual punishment under the United States Constitution to execute somebody who's mentally retarded. So we have been arguing that our client is mentally retarded. I completely believe he's mentally retarded, but we're in Texas, and the Texas judge decided that he's not mentally retarded, and therefore they could execute him. So we've continued to appeal that ruling. I'm not trying to get this man out on the street. I think he's a dangerous human being. I am trying to get him to serve out his natural life in prison rather than to have the state of Texas kill him.
And so what people will say, well, you know, that costs a lot of money. You know, they're getting 3 squares a day, and we're dead, you know, all of those things. And my understanding, of course, is that it's far more expensive to put someone to death if you're just even looking at this as a fiscal measure, not as a mercy measure.
Right. All the statistics that I've ever seen suggest strongly that it's much more expensive to carry out a death penalty prosecution because, I mean, because death is different. So you have to provide somebody with greater resources in terms of lawyers. Most systems appoint 2 lawyers rather than just 1 lawyer. The prosecution puts more resources into it. There are different rules of picking a jury. The trials are longer. You can't cut back on them, because if you think the state's going to be allowed to kill somebody, you have to be as sure as you possibly could be that you're only executing guilty people. We've learned through Curtis that all of the protections in the world don't make the system work right, but the best efforts that any state has ever done makes the system very, very expensive. And a lot of prosecutors and police officers have come to realize that the amount of money you spend in prosecuting one case could be much better spent prosecuting dozens of cases and locking these people up, and our society would be just as safe.